Live at 4 in 1 week, Vinny Palermo will no longer be a member of the Omaha City Council. He is in jail on public corruption charges and failed to show up for this afternoon's council meeting.
Well, that makes 3 straight months he's missed, which means the rest of the council will now vote to vacate his seat next Tuesday. Brian Mastery joins us now live with reaction. Brian.
Lauren, West Omaha Councilman Brinker Harding made a short statement at the beginning of this afternoon's meeting saying, "Today is not a milestone to celebrate, since by the time a replacement is made, District 4 voters will have gone 5+ months without proper representation. And in his view, they deserve better." When the clerk took roll call and Palermo didn't answer because he's in jail in Wahoo awaiting trial on public corruption charges, that did mark his 3rd straight month of unexcused absences. Council will vote next Tuesday to vacate his South Omaha seat, which will start the process of replacing him. Now, the council will take applications, hold public interviews. Council president told me he believes the replacement will be appointed by September. By the way, Vinny Palermo has been collecting a paycheck the entire time he's been in jail. Council members make around $40,000 a year. Now, Palermo has pleaded not guilty to the federal charges. Mayor Stothert told me today that she wishes he would have just resigned to save the city and South Omaha residents all this trouble.
It didn't look good at all, I don't think. I mean, you know, you should be holding your elected officials to the highest standards you can. And the indictment and what I found most disturbing was actually what happened, and that is a program that is focused on helping pretty much underprivileged youth.
Now, the mayor is speaking about the PACE program. Remember, the Police Athletic League built to bridge the gap with young people through sports. The mayor took away any city dollars that went to the program after the allegations surfaced that Palermo, 2 retired police officers, and the Chief Rudd's fundraiser had spent money raised for the nonprofit in questionable ways. Mayor Stothert went on to say that the federal investigation isn't complete, that there could be more indictments, which is her reasoning for continuing to hold back on financially supporting PACE at this time. Once again, the council will announce next Tuesday the specifics of the process to replace Vinny Palermo. Live in the newsroom, Brian Mastery, 6 News.